Father continues to give instructions concerning to his Son. And he talks about wisdom, the importance of wisdom. We have gone over much of chapter 4 already as we looked at the purpose of wisdom and the priority of wisdom. And so today I want to just look at one verse. It's a word of warning. The Father continues to speak to his Son or to his children. And it's a word of warning. Proverbs really is a good parenting book. When you think about it, it's a good parenting book. And so he says in Proverbs 4:23, watch over your heart with all diligence, for from it flow the springs of life. And so in this verse, the wise man gives a word to the wise that is really the key for living a life of purity. In this one verse, he gives the what, the how, and the why for living a clean life, a good life. So in a sentence, he says, watch over your heart with all diligence, for from it flow the springs of life. The what is watch over your heart. The heart in Scripture is viewed as the center of man's life and livelihood. It is the center, it is the core of man, from which everything else emanates. So it's the center. It is the center. Dothan City Schools has an office that is called the Central Office. And at the Central Office, the superintendent and his staff, they're housed, and from the Central Office, decisions are made that are passed on to the schools in the system. It's the Central Office. And in Scripture, the heart is seen as the central office of the human being. It is the place from which everything else emanates or is passed on. In Matthew chapter 15, in talking about the Pharisees as being those who say certain things but don't do them, Jesus explains to his disciples. It says in Matthew 15:15, Peter said to him, explain the parable to us. And Jesus said, are you still lacking in understanding also? Do you not understand that everything that goes into the mouth passes into the stomach and is eliminated? But the things that proceed out of the mouth come from the heart, and those defile the man. For out of the heart come evil thoughts, murders, adulteries, fornications, thefts, false witness, slander. These are the things which defile a man. So from the heart emanates the things that are there. It gives us the context. Things, whether good or bad, flow from the heart. And because the heart is viewed as the center of man's life, it is to be protected. It is to be watched over. It is not to be just left for anything to come in or anything to invade. And so he says, watch over. That's what the shepherds were doing the night when Jesus was born. They were keeping watch over their flock. by night. For the shepherd, the sheep were valuable, and they were watching over them so that no harm might come to them. The elders of the church are told to watch over the people in the church, looking out for their souls. And so the what is watch over your heart. The how is with all diligence. With all diligence, with much effort. The how is in keeping with the what. Because it is the heart, we are to watch over it with all diligence. Because the heart is the center of man, it is to be watched over with all diligence, with much care. Diligence has the idea of caring for something and being careful with it, being careful in what is being done. In 1956, a song was written to help children keep watch over their hearts with all diligence. You know it. The lyrics go, "Oh, be careful, little eyes, what you see. Oh, be careful, little eyes, what you see. For the Father up above is looking down in love. So be careful, little eyes, what you see. Oh, be careful, little ears, what you hear. Oh, be careful, little ears, what you hear. For the Father up above is looking down in love. So be careful, little ears, what you hear. Oh, be careful, little tongue, what you say. Oh, be careful, little tongue, what you say. For the Father up above is looking down in love. So be careful, little tongue, what you say. Oh, be careful, little hands, what you do. Oh, be careful, little hands, what you do. For the Father up above is looking down in love, so be careful, little hands, what you do. Oh, be careful, little feet, where you go. Oh, be careful, little feet, where you go. For the Father up above is looking down in love. Oh, be careful, little feet, where you go. Be careful, be careful, be careful. Why? Because from the heart flow the springs of life. That's the why. As a boy growing up, our source of water was a well that was in our backyard. We didn't have running water. We drew our water from a well. And the well was deep, and the water was cool. The water in the well was serviced by a spring that kept the well flowing. That well served as a source of our drinking water. It was the water with which we bathed. It was the water with which we washed clothes. It was the water which we watered flowers. It was the water with which we watered the garden. We drew the water from the well. On occasion, The people who owned the farm would have crop dusters to come and spray their crops with pesticides, insecticides. And when the crop dusters will come, or we hear them coming, our mother would say, cover the well. Cover the well to keep the poison from getting into the well. Because if the poison got into the well and we drank the water from the well, the poison would get into us. And so if something contaminated the spring from which we got our water and we consumed it, we too would be contaminated. And so that's what the Father is saying to his Son when he says, watch over your heart with all diligence, for from it flow the springs of life. That's why the songwriter said, be careful, little eyes, what you see. Because there's a spring that will spring up in the rest of your life that will influence everything else that you do. And so the admonition is to watch over your heart. Your heart is your center. It is that place from which everything else emanates. And so we covered the well to keep it from being contaminated so that we would not be contaminated. The well in our day was a treasure. Thinking about it now as an adult, it was the most important thing on the property. It was the well. It was the center for us growing up. Watch over your heart. I like what the NIV says. Above all else, guard your heart. For everything you do flows from it. Guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. A few weeks ago, they had an oil spill in Ohio.